Welcome to the Cedar Falls regular City Council meeting this October 7, 2019. I'll now call this meeting to order and ask for a roll call from Madam Clerk, please.
Miller.
Here.
DeBoer.
Here.
Cruz. Blanford.
Here.
Dara.
Here.
Wieland. Here. Green. Here. Councilmember Cruz absent, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 1 is a motion to approve the regular meeting of September 16th.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. I do want to take a moment here for a proclamation of the Day of Inclusion. It reads, whereas we value inclusiveness and a sense of community, and whereas we believe every citizen should have the opportunity to participate in the economy, and whereas inclusion is good business and a diverse workforce drives economic growth and is integral to a strong economy, and whereas companies that bring together diverse cultures and people in the workplace capture greater shares of the consumer market, and whereas a more qualified workforce is gained when we can recruit from a diverse pool of candidates, and whereas a diverse and inclusive workforce helps businesses avoid employee turnover and the costs associated with such turnover, and whereas 85% of companies with at least $500 million in annual revenue agree that diversity fosters a more creative and innovative workforce and is crucial to fostering innovation in the workplace, and whereas inclusion increases customer satisfaction, and whereas diversity and inclusion is critical to moving our economy forward, and whereas diversity and inclusion in the boardroom help to leverage a company's full potential. Now there, I, for Jim Brown, Mayor of the City of Cedar Falls, do hereby proclaim October 11, 2019 as the Day of Inclusion in Cedar Falls to raise awareness of the importance of inclusion to our economy and our community. I believe Gwen Berry is here for a couple moments to speak. Just right up here to the microphone and make sure it's right there. And welcome.
Thanks for having me. My name is Gwen Berry. I serve as Assistant to the President and Chief Diversity Officer at the University of Northern Iowa. I am also working very closely with Grow Cedar Valley. We are hosting maybe our third Diversity and Inclusion Summit, calling it an Economic Inclusion Summit this year on October 11th at the Diamond Event Center. And I left my phone at my seat because I was going to give you the number to the chamber to call if you wanted to attend. It's an all-day event, and it's our chance to create brave spaces. What we have found is that we as Iowans have a tendency to talk around subjects as opposed to talking about subjects, and especially when the subjects get thorny. When the subject is race, the subject is homosexuality, we have a lot of other pieces and parts that come into it and that make it difficult for us to talk about them. But more recent polls, for instance, I saw one on CNN yesterday, said that 81% of Americans believe that if we have varying races and ethnicities in our country, we are a better country. That's up 11% over the last 10 years, but it's also extremely polarized. You will find that way more Democrats, according to this poll, believe that as opposed to Republicans. I'm not asking who anybody voted for, just quoting the facts. We've also been working very closely in Grow Cedar Valley with leaders in the community to create a space to talk about some of these issues, especially around that 24/7 report, which wasn't anything anybody wanted to hear about our community. So we've been getting together for about 6 or 7 months now. We've broken up into 2 groups. We are a leadership group and the working group. The working group meets more often than the leadership group, but out of the leadership group has come 4 champions, one of them being your own mayor, Jim Brown. The other 3 are Quentin Hart, my boss, Dr. Mark Nook, and we have a representative from John Deere, whose name is Beth Hines, I believe. And Beth will be taking over for an individual who recently retired. But those 4 people will be in charge of keeping that conversation going about diversity and inclusion and how it affects all of us. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming. Moving on, is there any agenda revisions, Madam Clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Item 21 on the resolution calendar is being removed from the agenda.
Council can note item 21. Moving on to old business, item 2 is passed ordinance 2954, amending chapter 3 of the Code of Ordinances relative to the 48-hour parking on city streets. Upon its third and final consideration, is there a motion, please?
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion or final discussion from council? Requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 3 is pass ordinance 2955, amending the Code of Ordinances by removing property from the A1 and placing the same in R1. Upon its second consideration, is there a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion second. Any further comment from council? Requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 4 is pass ordinance 2956, amending Chapter 19 of the Code of Ordinances relative to monument mailboxes. Upon its second consideration, is there a motion, please?
Second.
Motion second. Any further comments from council?
I had a couple questions.
Sure.
In reading through the ordinance, I did not see that there was any kind of a restriction on the size. Is there any, did I miss that, or is there a size requirement on how tall or wide or what the cost of these could be?
There's no prescription for sizes in the ordinance. The restriction would be to maintain the sight triangles so that there's clear sight, generally 30 feet from an intersection, 10 feet from an alleyway or driveway. But as far as size limitations, I'm not aware of any. There are none in the ordinance itself.
And would that require us to go back and look at the ordinance regarding plantings and objects within that right-of-way?
I don't think so, because we've specified one category of things in the right-of-way here, and that's the mailboxes. Those other items can stay as they are, I believe.
Okay, and then my last question was to try to minimize the cost to taxpayers. It does say in the ordinance that removal or damage to them, that we will only pay up to what's a scheduled fee, but you have to go to somewhere else in the ordinance to find out what that scheduled fee is. It does say that you have to get a permit. So are we going to put that dollar amount also on the permit to make sure that the people know that they could put up, for instance, a $4,000 monument, but the most they're going to get paid is perhaps is $75 if it has to be taken down to put in new curb and gutter?
Certainly, that could be considered to put that right in the permit or the application form or something like that, sure.
Because I think it would be very important to make sure that the people know. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from council? Requires a roll call vote, please.
Four voting aye, 2 voting nay, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to the consent calendar, the following items will be acted upon by a voice vote on a single motion without separate discussion. Unless someone from the council or the public requests time to be pulled for such discussion. Any requests from council? From the public? I'll now summarize the consent calendar. Item 5 is receive and file the Committee of the Whole minutes of September 16th relative to the wheat pasting murals in Cedar Falls by Fortepan, Iowa. Just as a side note, these were actually placed on the hill. I think they look fabulous. You can see a couple pictures there. The goal was to use originally Iowa photos only, and Fortepan, Iowa got actually a grant to put these murals up on the hill. They're durable but not permanent. And Shirley Dean, who is pictured here, lives in Cedar Falls. She's 82 years young, and that likeness to the right is actually her when she was 12 years old. So quite an impressive, if you get quite an impressive showing. If you get a chance, go to the hill and catch a couple of those murals. Item 6 is receive and file monthly reports of August, and item 7 is approving permits and licenses. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved. Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion from council? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next is a resolution calendar. These items will be acted upon by a roll call vote on a single motion without separate discussion. Unless someone from the council or the public requests an item to be pulled for such discussion. Any requests from council? From the public? I am going to ask to pull item 17, Madam Clerk. I will summarize the resolution calendar minus that item. Item 8 is a resolution approving and authorizing execution of a Title IX non-discrimination agreement with the Iowa DOT and other government entities relative to receiving federal funding through the Iowa Department of Transportation. 9 and 10 are resolutions levying a final assessment for costs incurred by the city to mow and clear vegetation on Waterloo Road and Newman Avenue. Item 11 is a resolution approving and adopting a rate of $3.89 per 1,000 taxable value for the downtown Cedar Falls Self-Supported Municipal Improvement District, or the SMID, for fiscal year 21. Item 12 is approving and authorizing the expenditure of funds to upgrade the city's data backup and recovery system. 13 is approving and authorizing the expenditure of funds for the purchase and installation of cameras and lighting in the downtown area. 14 is approving and authorizing execution of a cooperative agreement for use of the swimming pools with the Cedar Falls Community School District. 15 is approving and authorizing the expenditure of funds for the purchase of biosolids transport unit. 16 is approving 6 claims for non-residential relocation assistance reimbursement in conjunction with the West First Street reconstruction project. 18 and 19 is approving and authorizing execution of a license agreement to install a fiber optic telecommunications systems on West 12th and Division and Magnolia Drive. Item 20 and 22 is approving and authorizing execution of a stormwater maintenance and repair agreement relative to a post-construction stormwater management plan for properties on Hudson Road and West Ridgeway and on West Viking Road Industrial Park. Are we not showing this up here? Or trying to get there? Okay. Jen normally doesn't come over here. She's come over here trying to change the football game or something. Well, sorry, you have to just...
There it is.
There it is. Okay, good. I'm almost done. Okay. Items 23, 24, and 25 are resolutions approving a central business district overlay zoning district site plan for facade improvements on East 2nd Street and Main Streets. Item 26 is approving final occupancy of the Holiday Inn and Event Center prior to the acceptance of the public improvements in Gateway Business Park. Item 27 is setting November 4th as a date of public hearing on the city's consolidated annual performance and evaluation report for the Community Development Block Grant Program. And 28 is setting October 21st as a date of public hearing on a proposed ordinance granting a partial property tax exemption for construction of an industrial warehouse and production facility on Capitol Way. Is there a motion to approve the resolution calendar minus item 17?
So moved.
Motion second. Any further discussion from council? Requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 17 reads a resolution approving and authorizing execution of an agreement to purchase parking meter equipment and related services in conjunction with the implementation of recommendations from the Downtown and College Hill parking studies. Is there a motion, please?
Second.
The motion second. I did open this up. I think staff had a brief update for me in terms of the parking equipment. Is it Tara?
Yeah, I was just going to say, as you may recall, the City of Cedar Falls had a downtown district and College Hill district parking study completed by our consultant. The council approved the recommendations in the studies, and the city staff is now implementing the parking management technology. From a list of qualified vendors, IPS Group was able to fulfill the comprehensive integrated parking management system requested. This comprehensive integrated parking management system consists of 7 pay stations, hardware and system, mobile payment system, parking enforcement citation equipment, citation processing and collections management system, permit management system as well. The city staff recommends approving and executing the contract with IPS Group Incorporated for the parking management system.
Thank you, Tara. Appreciate that. Any further questions or discussion from council?
Mr. Mayor, just a quick question. For IPS, do they collect any funds from parking citations, or does that money all go to the city?
So that is able to be done in a few ways. So IPS does get a fee that that also is for their software.
Okay.
Anything further from council? It's been motion second. Requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Item 29 is pass an ordinance amending Chapter 23 of the Code of Ordinances relative to establishing a 35 miles per hour speed limit on Ridgeway Avenue from Hudson Road East to Iowa Highway 58 upon its first consideration. Is there a motion, please? Motion second. Any further discussion from council? Requires a roll call vote, please. Mr. Whelan?
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to item 30, is there a motion to allow bills and payroll?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Requires a roll call vote, please.
All voting aye, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on, does council have any items for referral this evening? Hearing and seeing none, does council have any updates this evening? I do believe we have our Northern Iowa Student Government Liaison for a quick update. Rebecca?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Northern Iowa Student Government is excited to partner with Women of Action and Cedar Valley Activate to host a mayoral and city council debate. This event is taking place this Thursday, October 10th at 5 p.m. on UNI campus in the University Room located on the lower level of Mocker Union. Ron Steele from KWWL and Nancy Newhoff from The Courier will be the debate moderators. Audience members will be able to ask questions by writing them down on slips of paper that will be handed out throughout the debate. Everyone is welcome and encouraged to attend. Northern Iowa Student Government hopes to see you all there this Thursday, October 10th at 5 p.m. in the University Room. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Moving on to public forum, speakers will have one opportunity to speak for up to 5 minutes on topics germane to city business. Is there anyone here from the public that would like to speak tonight? We'll go up the front here. Mr. Skane, if you want to come up. I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Can Mr. Oldhoff come with me because he's part of the presentation?
Well, that's a new one. Unless council, okay, he's happy. He's more than welcome to come up after your 5 minutes.
Fine.
Thank you.
Jim Skane, 2215.
Mr. Skane, if you would get the microphone there.
That's right. I'm at the wrong place there. Okay. Jim Skane, 2215 Clay Street. On the 23rd of February in 2015, this council entered into an agreement to have both engineering renovate University Avenue. And in that proposal, they indicated a number of things that have not proved to be true. For one thing, in their cost factor, they said that if you had nothing but optimized lights, it would cost $1 million more than the $32.5 that 4C would cost. Well, as we have learned, that is not true. If we look at what has happened in Waterloo, as they have taken their 3.2 miles and done it in under their $28 million budget, we know that it does not cost more. The other things that both alleged is that putting the roundabouts in made the roads safe. Well, one of the things that was not there was not the factor that for years before that vote was taken, the city had committed itself to a complete street model. Now we can see the complete street model being built over in Waterloo, because the complete street model is for the pedestrian, for the bicyclist, and for vehicles. Roundabouts only serve one of those, and that's vehicles. It does not serve the other two. Now, in the process of building, the $32.5 million has ballooned over $40 million. I'm not sure whether everything is done, but it's still quite a bit more than the $20 million that the state allotted Cedar Falls to renovate. Now, what I have with the expertise of Ed Othoff is to propose a matter, because this is what has been broken, is that University Avenue is no longer a corridor. For decades it was a corridor, and now it's not. Now in that particular process, we have opportunity now to make it a corridor again and to connect with Waterloo's corridor on University Avenue. And so Ed Olthoff has proposed and has a detailed analysis of how University can again be made a corridor. And the cost is not $40 million. It's less than $6 million, less than the cost of 2 roundabouts. So I'm going to ask Mr. Mayor to have Mr. Olthoff speak.
Sure. I will just wait one moment. If you have any comments or questions for staff or council amongst yourself, previous speaker. Thank you, Mr. Skane. So you're welcome to come up for 5 minutes as well for public comment. State your name and address, please.
Thank you. My name is Ed Olthoff. I'm on 1310 West 7th Street. Been investigating roundabouts, one of our favorite subjects these days. And one of the truth of the matters comes out in the Green Hill Road Corridor Study, that Main and Green Hill widening only, 1.1 million, a roundabout 2.8 million, Cedar Heights and Green Hill widening 0.7 million, roundabout 2.5 million. Those are significant cost differences just for the experience of using some flavor of the month new technology for roadways. Anyway, I did some engineering estimates for what it would take to turn University back into a corridor, and basically taking your roundabouts and replacing them with traditional intersections. I was pleased to see that my numbers came out similar to your Green Hill Road study for a traditional roundabout. I'll just throw some numbers at you. The dog legs under Highway 58, 900,000, 880,000. This is changing them from the loop-to-loop roundabouts, figure eights, to a traditional 90-degree intersection with traffic lights. University Ave and Holiday, 834,000. University and Waterloo, 717,000. All these are not just the roadway, but also frontage road renovation, especially Valley Park and University. That's 700,000, and we might be able to not have to drive through Famous Dave's parking lot anymore, and Hong Kong House. Yeah, another good question. The median on Waterloo Road, it's a bit of a challenge to access businesses on the other side of the street without making a potentially 2-mile round trip to the U-turn at the roundabout on either end of the road. That's a little more pricey, 1.4 million. But that would be making that a left turn lane instead of a roundabout and being able to go across the road to the businesses there. University Ave, Cedar Heights, 600,000. Just threw a few other things in. Medians in the College Hill or College Square. 253 from Highway 58 to Valley Park to Waterloo, 422, and a little left turn lane in Valley Park onto College Square for 40,000. This would be $5.8 million to basically restore the whole corridor. And if you look at costs relating to something like you're thinking of doing on Green Hill Road, skipping 2 roundabouts would, certainly 3 would cover all those costs of restoring the university corridor. So just something to consider.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any comments or questions from council? Previous speaker? Anyone else want to come and speak? Yes, Rosemary?
Good evening, Rosemary Beach, 5018 Sage Road. I have a couple of things here that I am curious about. I asked the last time I was here about the bump on Main Street at 18th and Main, approximately, which is still there. I drove over it 3 times today. So just hoping somebody can grade it off so you don't go over that bump. Then I have to thank you. I see the parking lot is going in, and I'm glad to see it. It's had bad weather getting in. My question is, I thank you, first of all, for finally getting there. I think we should have a celebration when it's open. But there's the 2 mailboxes on South Main that belong to that duplex house, I suspect. And they sit on the ugliest barrels with their mailboxes. I hope something can be done with those. They just sit on either side of where you drive into that. You may not notice it, but they're ugly and not very usable because they had to walk across the street to get to them. So just look when you go out there, you'll see the big barrels they're sitting on. Okay. Then I'll ask again, when 35 miles an hour was mentioned, I thought, there are still people who'd like to see South Main all 35 miles. I'll throw that in again. Okay. And I was asked tonight about when you go out, when you go out where Coneflower is, the double space, there is a piece of bike trail that comes up there and just stops. It should go somehow across Coneflower, I guess. We've never needed it, but now that we have a whole city group up there with the gas station and with the grocery store, it just quits. I guess I've never noticed it because I wasn't going to a gas station or a grocery store. So I just asked somebody to look at it. I was asked that question today, and I thought, yes, that just does quit there. That's the truth. One other thing, let's see. I had this idea the other day when I was looking into a magazine, a tourism magazine for Clear Lake, and they have yurts. And I just thought I'd throw in there, don't you think we need yurts in Cedar Falls? I think they would be quite wonderful. Another thing for our tourism trade. Now, what I'm going to say is, you know that I didn't like the gas station, and I was not alone. You know I didn't really want a grocery store. And I have to admit, I have them both. All of our neighbors have them both. So being a good neighbor, I'm shopping at the grocery store. And guess what tonight? I was in the gas station. It is a wild place giving away all kinds of stuff. And now that it's there, I'll probably appreciate it. I didn't want it, but once you get something, you might as well take advantage of it. So I'm hoping you all go out and take advantage of our neighborhood. I didn't ask for the city building. It's a lovely building. We've had meetings in there recently on one of the roadways. I didn't think I needed that either, but guess what? We have that too. So thank you, Council, I guess. But as a neighbor, I'm going to take advantage of both. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. We can certainly look at those things, but anything from the council? Previous speaker? Anyone else this evening? Ms. Pop?
Good evening. My name is Penny Pop. I live at 4805 South Main. How does ex parte communication affect our council and our ability to communicate with our elected officials? Currently, the City of Cedar Falls relies on a memo issued June 6, 2007, regarding ex parte communications with City Council members and Planning and Zoning Commission members regarding quasi-judicial proceedings. At the time, because of an Iowa Supreme Court decision, Sutton v. Dubuque City Council, the Iowa Supreme Court opined that in this specific rezoning case, the Dubuque City Council was acting in a quasi-judicial decision-making process. The city attorney at the time also went on to say that the opinion was narrow in scope. Now, attached to these quasi-judicial proceedings are a whole host of due process requirements that should make the proceeding fair to all, from residents, council, to other interested stakeholders. All of this should happen in the public eye. Our council members were advised then and now not to engage in any conversation about land use issues and decisions. The conversation was to take place in these chambers. Now, over the past few years, our city council has applied these restrictions on many occasions in site planning decisions. Open and unrestricted access to our elected officials was suddenly stopped. Now, with the elections coming up, the application and use of ex parte became a question at discussions with new candidates. I, too, had questions. So with the help of my senator, I was provided with an informal letter from the Assistant Iowa Attorney General in response to a formal request for opinion from the Attorney General of the use of ex parte in city council matters. Two items jumped out at me, and I will quote from the letter. While there is no specific provision in the Iowa Code that bars ex parte communication by city council members with constituents, there is a developing body of case law in Iowa limiting ex parte communications by governmental decision-making bodies regarding pending matters before the body where it will be deciding the matter as a quasi-judicial body. But then it continues to say, the Iowa Supreme Court clarified that the review of a rezoning decision is not necessarily quasi-judicial in nature, but may be quasi-legislative in nature when a city council is exercising its police powers to determine the best interest of the community as a whole, rather than determining the individual rights of specific parties. Such quasi-legislative actions do not restrict the city council to consideration of information only during the public hearing on the matter. Now, this clarification, in addition to the body of ex parte case law regarding rezoning cases, is found in Residential and Agricultural Advisory Committee v. Dyersville City Council, Iowa, 2016. The letter from the Assistant Attorney General also goes on to answer another question. Is the city attorney's legal advice to city council members binding? He found no statutory duty that binds city elected officers to follow the advice of legal counsel. Now, due to this information, I believe the city owes its residents an explanation or clarification on the city's stance on ex parte communication. Residents must enjoy free and unrestricted access to their elected officials within the boundaries of current law. Because the city is applying restrictions to residents, city council, and interested stakeholders based on outdated information for over 3 years, I am publicly questioning their continuing action and use of the guidelines.
1 minute remains, please.
Thank you. The most important aspect, in my opinion, in updating and educating all of us on ex parte communication and application would be the free flow of information from my elected officials. The residents deserve fair and equal treatment in land use matters. The question of whether our city council will continue to use outdated information in respect to all land use actions must be addressed, and I look forward to hearing your comments. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Before the next speaker, any comments or questions from council? Anyone further like to speak on public comment this evening? Yes, please.
Sharon Reginald, 108 Lilliput Lane. I'd just like to bring up that at our last city council meeting on September 16th, it was brought up that a city personnel issue had been blogged about. At that time, our city attorney was asked if there's any city policy on this, and he stated, and I quote, "The city definitely has a policy to keep personnel matters confidential." I'd like to just show you, I made a copy of the Courier article that came out on October 11, 2018, and it's titled, "4 PSOs Become Full-Time Firefighters in Cedar Falls." Within that article, the Courier says that our fire chief stated, "One of the firefighters who left did not leave on good terms. Josh Lux was asked to resign and be terminated." Continues in this article to talk about Josh Lux and the investigation that he had against him and what he was accused of. I'd just like to point out and ask you guys, do you feel this is a double standard? And why was this not looked at, or why was it not investigated or something done with it back in October of last year? Thank you.
Thank you. Before the next speaker, any council member have questions, comments? Previous speaker? Anyone else wish to speak this evening? Yes, sir, come on up.
Mark Miller, 2929 Waterbury Drive, Cedar Falls. I am proud to live in Cedar Falls, and I have a few comments to make about fire safety in Cedar Falls. I believe that there is a lot of misinformation out there about fire safety. In Cedar Falls, we have 2 manned fire stations, one on 18th Street and our brand new public safety building on South Main. These fire stations are necessary to house all of the large equipment and to be able to train and house our firemen. But they are stationary. They are not active until a call comes in. In Cedar Falls, we have an additional level of safety because we also have a mobile firefighting force in our PSO program. These units are mobile and could be put into action immediately as they are out on patrol. One unit could pump 300 gallons of foam on your house or in your house in 3 to 5 minutes. So we have a stationary force that takes the call, loads up, and rushes to the fire. But that can take up to 8 minutes or more. A fire could double in size a number of times in that amount of time. We also have a mobile force that can be there ahead of the stationary force and knock down the fire or even put the fire out before the stationary force gets there. I think the PSO program is even responsible for saving 3 lives in a mobile home fire, knocking down the fire and identifying where the people were so they could be saved. I believe the signs that are around town are misleading, as they are saying to stand up for safety in Cedar Falls. We have a safer city with the PSO program. And if they want even more safety, they should be asking for another foam unit to be installed so we could have 4 mobile units patrolling the city. I support our firemen, and I wish they would embrace this program because it does add another level of safety for our city. If my house is on fire, I'm not going to run down the driveway and tell the mobile unit to go away because I want to wait for the fire truck to get there. I'm going to say, thank God you got there so quickly. So we have a stationary force and we have a mobile force, which both are good for Cedar Falls. The past few months, I have watched people come up here and demand a change in the city. What would you change? We built an $11 million public safety building without raising taxes or selling bonds. Our property taxes have not been raised by the city in over the last 3 years. We have a thriving and historic downtown. Growth and development has been over $100 million in each of the last 3 years. I'll be voting November 5th, and I see no reason to change directions. Thank you. One other thing. What is the cost of a foam unit, or what does each foam unit cost to be put into a police vehicle? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Pretty direct question there, Director. Do you have any idea? Chief?
I do not recall the cost. I think it's a few $1,000s.
Okay. Anything further from council to each other or to staff? Director, I did want to clarify one quick thing. Right now, we have a shift of full-time firefighters, professional firefighters. Each and every day, we have a 24-hour shift, correct?
Yes, that's correct, we do.
And I don't know if the numbers are still holding at this point, but 25 or 26 professional firefighters split those 3 shifts, and 10 of those 25 to 26 firefighters are cross-trained, but they are assigned to professional firefighters manning the 2 stations the previous gentleman mentioned, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Anything further from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I wouldn't mind saying a few things. I appreciate Mr. Miller's comments, and maybe just to follow up with that a little bit. Tonight, and I'm going to read this out, make sure I get everything I want said. Tonight and for the past several weeks during a public forum, we've heard a lot of emotional testimonials regarding the PSO model. I appreciate the passion that is expressed in those comments because it is a significant change. It's understandable for people to question the changing of a model that we've come to expect. However, it's regrettable that during the evolution of the PSO model over the last 5 or 6 years, very little has been done by those who oppose it to better understand the model, let alone to work with it in good faith. I think it's important for the public not to get overwhelmed by the theme that the PSO model somehow makes Cedar Falls less safe. This is not true. I'd like to make several factual comments about the model and maybe more importantly about the extended process it's taken to get here. Beginning with the paid on call program, which I've been told is 15 or 16 years old now, years ago we trained city staff, cross-trained city staff to assist in different emergencies. Throughout the next several years, that model evolved into the PSO model, which is intended to increase efficient use of all the public safety personnel. This has been openly communicated at with all public safety personnel as well as the public. As the model evolved and the City Council began to formalize this model, all police officers and all firefighters were invited to pursue cross-training. This then would allow police to participate in firefighting duties and firefighters to participate in routine police duties. Since then, we've had numerous police officers get level 1 firefighter training, but I don't believe any firefighters have chosen to attend police training, and that's okay. We weren't requiring people to do it. We just made that offer. But this has been a decision that's not made overnight, and that's one of my points, is that we've talked about this for certainly the PSO model for at least 4 or 5 years and been very open about it. And I think the different iterations working on this for a period of time should also demonstrate that this hasn't been a knee-jerk implementation. We've looked at models, we've modified it over time, we've engaged both firefighters and police officers. We've had, over that time, at least 4 different combinations of city council members who have unanimously supported the model. So for 5 or 6 years at least, it's been pretty obvious that this is the direction the city has wanted to go. I think the problem with the argument that firefighters don't feel safe working with PSOs is a weak one. No one becomes a PSO until they've completed level 1 firefighter training, which is the same training that every firefighter in Cedar Falls has and every professional firefighter and volunteer firefighter in the state of Iowa have. So no one is considered a PSO until they meet that basic requirement. My question is, how is that different from our existing firefighters? If they don't feel safe, they're saying it's because they don't have the adequate experience. The only way you get experience is working shoulder to shoulder with your compatriots. And that opportunity has not necessarily come about as readily as it should. But to say that they don't feel safe because the training isn't there is, I think, misinformation. And I want people in the community to recognize that. And I guess the last thing I'd want to say, I think Mr. Miller did a nice comment, or a nice job of describing the model itself. But I guess the question I'd ask the public, do you really think that anybody up here, elected officials or city staff, would willingly put the city at risk, the safety of our citizens at risk, to save a few bucks? That is not the case. I want us to give this model a chance. We've done our homework. A team effort will make this model a reality. The public deserves to know that the individuals charged to protect us can work together regardless of their title. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dara. Yes. Anyone further from council?
Yeah. I'm going to be very brief. This is one project in my 16 years that has people either very passionate against it or using reason very much in favor of it. I have not seen a time when the fire union, over the 16 years I've been on council, has been willing to work with me on ideas to make their operation more efficient. They've always pulled rules on me, or it's in our contract. At the same time, the police union came forward and volunteered and says PSO program is a great program for our officers and for the city. It will save you money and it will make you safer. And that's exactly what's happened. Every time there's been a police argument from the traditional model, bring up an argument, Director Olson has countered it with facts and reason. Not one time has the challenge been successful. During that same period of time, the fire union has taken us to grievance 23 or 24 times. Not one time have they won the case. I agree with my fellow councilman. We put 8 years into this investigation, and we did it knowing we needed to take care of a problem that we're going to have a shortage of money. We looked at 4 different ways, which Council Darrell went over, and we found this is the most effective and efficient, far more effective and efficient than the current model. Your council did diligence on this. We spent a lot of time looking into it, and it is the right decision. It's saving our community money. It's getting more trained firefighters to the fire quicker than ever. And I know in one case where there was a fire and the person next door had a "we need more firefighters" sign. When he saw how many showed up, he took a sign and threw it in a garbage can. That's the misinformation you're getting. So I just wanted to state that we did our diligence, and we're good stewards for the money you gave us. If you wanted to reverse that and go back the old model, your taxes are going to go up significantly, because that's why we had to look at it. And by the way, the PSO model came from the citizens of Cedar Falls, not from staff and not from council. It was a list of many ideas that we asked the people of Cedar Falls to get us. I'm very thankful that they came up with that idea. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir. Anyone further from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just some clarification from city staff. Is it true that no firefighter has requested to attend the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy?
I don't know the answer to that.
We have had 3 firefighters participate in the reserve program, which is not necessarily the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy. There's 2 levels of certification for police officers. One is the reserve level and the other is the police officer level. We haven't had any go through the ILEA police officer level. We've had 3 go through the reserve level and worked on the paid on-call program for a number of years.
Anything further from council? Anyone further for public comment? Hearing and seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned this evening. Thank you.